We've got some breaking news on the Nord Stream pipeline explosions. This is coming from the Washington Post, which exclusively reports that 3 months before saboteurs, still not yet identified, bombed the natural gas pipeline, the Biden administration learned from a close ally, a European ally that's not named in the Washington Post report, learned that the Ukrainian military had planned a covert attack on Nord Stream using a small team of divers who reported directly to the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian armed forces. This, again, is according to the Washington Post. Details about the previously unreported plan were collected by a European intelligence service and then shared with the CIA in June 2022. These records were recently discovered by the Post as part of suspect Jack Teixeira's Discord Pentagon document dump earlier this year. Ukrainian officials, the White House, and the CIA all denied the Post's request for comment. So this is huge development. We're finding out about it because the Washington Post is reporting on this in connection with information that was posted by the Pentagon leaker on the Discord server. The Washington Post is not identifying which European allied country gave the U.S. government this information, although my understanding, if this information was just posted on Discord, I gather that anyone can find it if it's still there or was seen. So probably we will know who the European allied country is at some point. This suggests that the CIA, the U.S. government, was made aware of a plan by the Ukrainian military to attack the Nord Stream pipeline. Yeah. And German investigations are pointing that way. So there's a number of potential options on the table for how this went down. Maybe the U.S. government finds out Ukraine is planning this attack and says, stop that, don't do that, because we've got our own plan going on. Maybe there was some partnership between U.S. and Ukraine. Maybe a European country could have found out about something going down, told the U.S. and U.S. officials probably like, yeah, we know that's happening. We have a hand in it. Or this is a possibility. I know it goes against what the Seymour Hersh report has alleged and all that, but I still think it is a strong possibility that the Ukraine military did exactly what was described in this report on their own without the go-ahead of the United States. That is also a possibility.
I guess technically that is a possibility. What's interesting is that there are some parallels between Cy Hersh's reporting, which again was completely ignored by the mainstream media, acknowledged only under duress, which was written off as factually dubious, and his personality, his integrity was smeared as lacking credibility. But what he claimed at the time was that these NATO exercises that happened in June, known as the Baltops 22, were the cover to plant the explosives, which were exploded 3 months later in September. In the New Washington Post report, they say that the Ukrainians had planned to attack the pipeline on the heels of a major Allied naval exercise known as Baltops, which ran from June 5th to June 17th. Now, the accusation here is that they found out about this plan and that was not when it happened. Cy Hersh is saying that it was executed at that time, but it was a remote explosive, and so that's why it didn't get blown up at that time. But it is interesting to see some corroborating details. The Washington Post report also does loop in the reporting about the boat that was found with traces of explosives, which many people looked at skeptically because the boat didn't seem big enough or of the right type to execute this kind of mission, which I think is going to raise some questions about, if we believe that the mainstream media has been playing a kind of intermediary role here, being overly trusting and reporting State Department narratives in this arena, then should this story also be looked at with skepticism? Is this a way to?
But they're getting there.
They're being forced
they're
to.
Getting
right?
there.
They're being forced to. Some people are pointing out online that, the U.S. If this aspect of the reporting is true, that the U.S. knew that it was a European non-Russian national, likely Ukrainian national, that executed this explosion, and still insinuated at the time that it could have been Russia. right? So really just think about what that means. It's one thing to want to cast aspersions on Russia just because it's politically advantageous when you literally don't know who did it.
And that's the most favorable case for the U.S. is the U.S. was not involved, Ukraine did it, and even so, when it happened, despite having a report saying that Ukraine was plotting exactly this, still blamed Russia. And that is the best case scenario.
Right, but the idea that they fully knew it wasn't Russia and we're still trying to point
I guess
that
Biden is the one who said that. It could be that Biden was not made aware of this, of what the CIA had found out, and so genuinely naively thought it was Russia, I guess.
And
also not great.
The Washington Post article also points out that Zelensky similarly could have been kept in the dark, that the reporting
They specifically say that, yes, that so this intelligence report says that this was organized by General Valery Zaluzhny, who is Ukraine's highest-ranking military officer, and he was put in charge of this so that Zelensky had plausible deniability and didn't know about it. Again, make of that what you will. It's very, very interesting.
It is. So, you mentioned this a second ago. They seem to be edging toward some version of truth after basically not covering the story for some time. We had this trickle of news stories. Now we found this boat. Now we're having this leak from the Discord. But also we're not disclosing the European country involved. It's hard to imagine how the country, what do we think?
Right,
it's going to magically be Italy, Spain?
Germany.
No, we know, So it does feel like on some level, explicitly, they are choosing to withhold information because of what the intelligence agencies have requested.
And they moved from, blame Russia to blame, rogue actors. And this report explicitly says it's not rogue actors. It's not like random Ukrainians. This was organized at the next highest level, not by Zelensky, but the next highest level up, the top military person organized this attack. So this is pretty, already we're to the point where this is very contrary to what the mainstream media tried to cram down your throat with respect to Nord Stream for the last year. And that's and then
the string of no comments at the end of this article, no comment from the White House, no comment from the CIA, that is only going to last so long. At a certain point, Joe Biden or his press secretaries are going to have to submit themselves to comment, and I don't doubt that the journalists are, at this point, going to be very compelled, at the very least, to be asking questions about what's going on here.
The floodgates seem like they're open at this point, which is good. Good to have some skilled journalists and reporters finally with enough curiosity. Probably they had this curiosity before. It was just so contrary to what the vibe is, the very pro-Ukrainian vibe among. And
there has been an argument. Some people have made that the media
liberals
shift a little bit on Ukraine. There was the story we're going to be talking about it today about the New York Times finally reporting on the large quantities of Nazi memorabilia, ephemera, tattoos, etc., that seem to be on so many Ukrainian soldiers and what that means. There does seem to be a growing acknowledgement of some of the critiques that many anti-war voices have been making of this war for some time. Some people have said, well, that is evidence of the fact that the State Department, that the military view of the conflict is changing and there's an effort to get out. But the statements from the Biden White House don't seem to indicate that in the least, even though there are clear political consequences for him to still be the face of this very unpopular war.
This is a great paragraph from the Washington Post. Biden administration officials now privately concede there's no evidence that conclusively points to Moscow's involvement. But publicly they have deflected questions about who might be responsible. European officials have quietly suggested that Ukraine was behind the attack, but resisted publicly saying so over fears that blaming Kiev could fracture the alliance against Russia. At gatherings of European and NATO policymakers, officials have settled into a rhythm, as one senior European diplomat said recently, don't talk about Nord Stream. We don't talk about Nord Stream. That's the policy.
Well, we'll be
how it's laid out there.
Continue to follow this. I'm sure we'll get some more updates as journalists do their job and raise these questions to the White House for comment. More rising after this.